Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ episode 174, the knife series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. This week, however, you guys get to tell me exactly how wrong I was last week. All right, if you're new to this series, what we do is we take your questions from the comments section below these videos. So if you have a question and you think it might merit being answered on a future video, drop it in the comments below and we'll have a shot. This week, before we get to the part where I was wrong, that's coming a little bit later, we're going to start our questions today with Jack1133. Hey DCA, I have a good collection of knives, but my most gentlemanly is a CRKT LCK. What would you recommend under $100 that would work as a steak knife in nice company and simply look good? Any opening type will work. Okay, yeah, let's do this. We've got your LCK right here. Actually, you didn't mention which version you had. I pulled the 3.3 inch bladed version. And while the shape of it has, a certain refinement to it, and if it were dressed up the right way, it could certainly come across as a very convincing formal knife or gentleman's knife. But the way it is right here, GRN handles and, standard blade finish, nothing fancy. It just feels a little more basic, a little more tactical. What you're going to want to do before we get into, what knife will work, let me tell you some things that you should look for something that's going to be used as a steak knife or any kind of work on a cutting board like surface, like you're talking about. And this one really doesn't cut it, no pun intended. And because you've got a pretty straight profile here, a pretty straight blade, not a lot of belly, and not a lot of room for your knuckles when you're cutting on a plate or cutting board. And that's where it comes down to. I mean, we get down there, yeah, you can do it. You're hitting the steak without, completely dragging your knuckles through stuff, but there's not a lot of clearance here. It's not going to be very comfortable. You'll be bumping into the other stuff on the plate and other dishes, green beans and all that. You don't want that. And there's a few different ways you can get the type of clearance you're looking for. And we'll start with something that's kind of the most similar to your LCK to start with and then veer off from there. The Quaken Air by Lucas Burnley from Boker right here is a good option. This one right here is a Knife Center exclusive for just under $70 right now, so it hits your budget quite well. And you got S35 VN steel as well, which is pretty sweet. 3.5 inch blade, it's got a straight backed spine, so there's no drop there, and the edge itself curves almost the entire way towards the tip, which again is in line with the spine of the handle. And that gives you a lot more knuckle clearance while engaging all of that, belly near the tip on your cut of meat. You're a lot higher up off of the cutting board or plate with that. That is one way to do it. So if none of these suggestions quite work or quite strike your fancy, look for stuff like that or the other features I'm going to show you to kind of guide what you're looking for. Another really good option, I think, would be the Petrified Fish Hourglass. This is a knife that makes more expensive knives feel like a ripoff, quite honestly. About $64. K110, which is name brand D2, so not exotic stuff, but the handles and the titanium bolsters here. This one is the snakewood version. There's a couple different wood options. Super classy, super graceful and elegant shape, nice action. And what we've got here are a couple things. One, you've got a tip that sits a little bit below the center line of the handle, and the handle itself curves down from the blade, allowing, especially in conjunction with this blade shape where they give you a lot of flaring belly right here, creates this kind of S curve in a way that again gives you a ton of knuckle clearance off of the table right here, and you can really engage all of this belly through your steak or whatever you're cutting on that surface. Really, really nice engagement of the belly on this particular knife. And again, super classy and super affordable too for what you're getting here. Maybe not super affordable, but super good value, I would say. That would make an awesome gentleman's EDC steak knife. And one other way is kind of creating a drop to the edge like you see on this Vision FG from Civivi, combined with a handle that kind of sticks, up at an angle. You can see it, what I'm talking about right there. And it makes sense because the designer's original intent behind the versions that preceded the production versions was actually as a fruit and food prepping knife. So you may not have the slicey belly that a lot of steak knives or other meat cutting implements have, but you've got enough there, certainly, to do your steak knife stuff. And the offset you need to keep your knuckles out of your mashed potatoes. Hope those help. For the classy one of these, this one's about 99 bucks with VG10 core, Damascus blade, ivory G10 handles. Very nice. Next question comes from James Grantham. Hey DCA, I'm looking to upgrade my kitchen knives, starting with a good chef knife. My budget would be about $150. What are your recommendations? So I'm assuming you're saying your budget is about $150 for just the chef knife, not for the whole upgrade, because, well, that's the way I'm going to go with it. But that price point, I got some options for you. I'm going to show them to you, but I will warn you that that price point is kind of tricky in terms of an upgrade, because one, I don't know what you're upgrading from, if it's like a super basic set, or if you already have like decent stuff, but you want something more special. At the $150 point, the knives, the 8-inch chef knives you're looking at, from like the big basic brands, the German brands, and even the Japanese ones, you're just then at that price point getting into like their basic like core lineup standard chef knife. For example, the Henkel's Pro 8-inch traditional chef's knife right here is about 160 bucks on the site right now. And you know, construction is maybe not that dissimilar from what you already have. I would recommend personally going with something like the Pro here. You'll notice there's no bolster coming down to the edge. I like that for the longevity of the knife as you sharpen it. You don't have to deal with that bolster creating a gap and keeping you from hitting the cutting board more effectively. But this is an option, and it is certainly a fine knife, but it doesn't feel special to me, you know, despite how good it may be. There are a few things I'll show you here. We actually have another Henkel's from their Miyabi line on sale right now. Normally it's $160, and this feels more special for sure at that price point. We got a crowned spine, which is really nice, contoured handle, no bolster again, FC61 stainless steel, which is just their name for Sandvik's 13C26, I believe it's 13C26, but a nice tough Sandvik steel. So a little bit of an upgrade over the basic stainless that you're gonna get on the Pro right here. But it's nothing super exotic nonetheless. But right now this is on sale for about 130 bucks, which is quite nice. Other options, MKM recently came out with a Jens Anso collaboration, the Prima series. They've got a Santoku and a Gyotu. Actually, I have the Gyotu over here, which is a little bit bigger. But I like the 7.5-inch Santoku personally here, so I just thought I'd show this one. These are about 130 bucks. Same kind of steel, however, the X50 CR MOV ... whatever, that, you know, stuff. I don't know if that's exactly what this Henkel's is using, but a lot of that ilk of standard kitchen knives uses that steel. So you're not getting something super exotic there. And I should warn it as well, with bolt-on handles like this, you do have to be a lot more careful about, you know, cleanliness, things getting in there, and bacteria growing and that sort of thing. Actually, I mean, you have to deal with that on this style of knife as well. So definitely keep that in mind. If you want to get into more exotic steels, there are a couple options. One of them under your price point, one a little bit higher, which I'll get to in a second. And the first is this right here. The Shin Cutlery Shin Cross Chef's Knife. This comes in about $139. Now, they do refer to this knife, I should say, as a powder alloy with a Rockwell of 62 plus or minus 1 for their target. So should be pretty good stuff. I don't know what powder steel it is. The way it's described here, it's a special powder alloy under vacuum oil extraction with high hardness. So I don't know exactly what it is, quite honestly. So you'll have to decide for yourself whether you want to go for that unknown quantity right there. But the design of the knife, while unconventional, I think works pretty well. Carbon fiber handles feel nice and smooth. You got a great place for the pinch grip, which is how you hold a chef knife, right? And it's got a pretty good rock on the cutting board as well. Crown spine, just really nice. Definitely looks the part. Again, bolt-on construction, so you have to be, you know, aware of that and cognizant of that as you clean the knife. If by chance you're willing to stretch your budget just a little bit, because remember, at 150 bucks For the most part, you're just getting into like the basic line or the standard backbone of like stuff like the Henkel's line. If you're willing to go up to 200, even if you have to wait like another month or two, I would recommend this knife right here. I've been using this for the last few weeks since Blade Show, and this is a phenomenal knife and a phenomenal value at actually 199 bucks on our website right now. This is the new Joy of Cooking kitchen knife, Santoku knife. It's a collaboration between Dan Eastland of Dogwood Custom Knives and Ethan Becker of not only Becker Knife and Tool, but the Joy of Cooking cookbook as well. And Dan makes great chef knives. He has for a long time. Ethan knows his chef knife design inside and out. He's been practicing both food prep and knife design his entire life practically. And this is a fantastic design in addition to being a fantastic value. The steel is a little bit on the thin side, so it can be very efficient. S35 VN steel, so it's American made. Actually, the whole knife, everything that you get is American made in this package. Great cutting geometry, great balance in the hand as well. And you're not gonna have to worry so much about, these sanitary values of your handles. If you've got G10 with internal pins and epoxy, keeping things nice and tight. Fantastic knife if you can wait another month or two and stretch your budget a little bit. I highly recommend it. So there you go. I hope that helps.
Now I'm hungry.
I could eat. All right, now we come to the segment we call Measured Once, Cut Twice, where we take a second slice at a previously answered question. And this is where you folks, keeping me honest, keeping me humble. I missed a very obvious answer to a question last week, and a number of you in the comments pointed out what should have been the answer, and you guys were right on. Danny Sims, ABI, Michael Lynn SC, a couple others. I only wrote down those two for some reason. I think there were more. So for everyone who mentioned the Civivi Cubit as this answer, props to you, but let me reread the question from last week and provide the correct answer this time. I'll sum it up. From Sexy Green Tomato, what folding knife would you recommend as a sleek and elegant, unintimidating EDC with only a bottle opener in addition to the blade? A thin blade would be preferable. Bonus points if it has a button or crossbar lock. Nothing I showed hit all of those points, much less the bonus points. But you folks are right. The Civivi Cubit is where it is at. Very affordable knife, actually. They're about 66 bucks and some change. In terms of the elegance, this might not be the best color combo for an elegant. The red and black's maybe slightly more intimidating. But there's like pink handle, blue handle options, things that are definitely a bit more refined. There's even a Damascus blade with a nice subtle green handle. But we didn't have that one in stock on today, so I didn't show that one. Where's the bottle opener, you ask? Right there on the tang of the knife, tang of the blade itself. In conjunction with the handle, that gives you your bottle opener right there, which is pretty sweet. And it hits everything else. It's a sleek profile. It's a thin, slicey blade, a very thin, slicey blade, in fact. I mean, that is almost scalpel thin. I'm exaggerating a little bit there, of course, but I mean, fantastic slicing profile. And you've got the button lock. So the bonus points are achieved as well. Super, super awesome. If you want to go with this particular suggestion, Sexy Green Tomato, stick with the Civivi versions of this knife. There is a We knife version. We is the parent company of Civivi, which offers more budget-oriented designs. They have done a We version of the Cubit. Here it is. It's nice and refined. It's much more expensive, about 208 bucks, but you get 20 CV blade steel, you get titanium handles. You don't, however, get the bottle opener. They closed things up on this particular knife in favor of giving you a little bit more edge in your handle right there. So that's the trade-off. No bottle opener on the We version. Actually, for our first questioner, this is about double the budget you initially recommended, but this design, you've got the drop to the handle here and the belly on the blade. This might be a good gentlemanly EDC steak knife as well. You got just enough clearance right there. Maybe not as much as some of the ones we looked at, but there you go. Thank you, comment section, for reminding me about this excellent knife. I am very embarrassed that I did not get that one.
Put him in his place.
Thank you much. All right, now we come to the lightning round for today. Matt RC77 asks, how do you work at one of the biggest knife e-commerce sites and not go broke? Discipline.
Paycheck.
Well, they pay me enough, but I could easily spend way more than my paycheck. Discipline. Get you some. Sam75260 says, funny. I get a kick out of people saying titanium clip as if pocket clip material really makes a difference in anything. Titanium or tool steel, who really cares? I think in this instance, there's a pretty active community out there of people who like to modify their pocket knives, and one of the ways to modify a pocket knife is electroanodizing titanium, so people like to know. That's why I usually mention it. Here's a fella upstairs. Actually, you've seen him before, Gary. He's been in a couple videos. He was in our sharpening shootout we did a couple months ago. It was over a year ago, actually.
Maybe.
A couple months. Anyway, he did all of these pocket clips and this Sabenza, actually, as well. So folks like to know, so we mention it. There you go. Hope that helps. All right, next question. After I put this back where it belongs, there we go. User FG3K89GF. DCA, why do you not ever call anything Saber grind? Not trying to be rude, sir, but why do you call Sabers low or high flat ground? The simple answer there is because Saber grinds can technically be flat or hollow or even convex in their geometry. So if I say something's Saber ground, it doesn't really tell you, the viewer, what's going on. So it's kind of useless information and wasted oxygen. I think where it gets tricky is Bradford does this, LT Wright does this as well. They will use the term Saber in their marketing to differentiate it from their full flat ground options, and that is just out there. So I can see where people pick that up. But like this LCK right at the beginning is hollow ground, but some folks would call that a Saber grind. So there you go. And actually, as far as if I'm remembering my history correctly, the original Sabers that we get Saber grind as a term from were hollow ground, or were they convex? But they weren't flat in any case. So yeah, I always try to be a little more descriptive to tell you what exactly is going on. Saber grind, unfortunately, does not convey any real useful information. So I'll say high flat or high hollow, or sometimes I'll say Saber height. Flat or hollow, because typically, again, historically, Saber grinds were, again, if I'm remembering my history correctly, right about halfway up the blade height. So there you go. Hope that helps. Well, now we come to our final question of the day, which is, of course, our most serious question of the day, which comes today from the Army SEAL. You did the answer for dogs, but how about us cat lovers? What knife would you recommend my cat use? Easy. The Cold Steel Karambit Trainer. Karambit because it reminds them of the knives they already have. This thing, if they don't actually need a knife, they carry around several of them.
Yeah, why do you want to give your cat more knives?
But Karambit because it reminds them of their onboard knives. Trainer because you want to go with something that's rubber like this, or rubberized, or plasticky, or whatever, because they're going to knock it off the table anyway. You don't want them to damage the knife or your stuff. That's your knife right there. Well, that's all we've got for today, folks. Let me know what you thought of the answers in the comments. And if you got any alternate suggestions for our folks today, leave them down there as well. In addition to, of course, your questions. If you have a question that you would like considered for a future episode, the comment section is the place for those to go. And also, I should mention, if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description. Those will take you to KnifeCenter.com, where don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, because the least thing we can do when you buy one of our knives today is give you some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we are signing off. See you next time.